So I'm a huge fan of Ben Shapiro. Not so much that I share his opinions, but I like the way he is not afraid to speak his mind. I respect his opinion, I respect his thoughts, and there are certain topics where he is like almost aggressively against. So for example, gender politics. That's something that he's hugely against. Like he doesn't believe that there's anything other than a man and a woman. And I was watching this little clip where sometimes he invites these people over to his show on YouTube, and he had famous scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I'm going to put a link to that video because I think it's kind of interesting to see from two aspects. One is how respectfully they talk to each other. They have different opinions, but they still manage to just express their thoughts and opinions in a conversation, which I keep saying this over and over again in my latest videos. I think that's the biggest problem with society today. We are not allowed to speak our mind. It seems like you have to think the right thing or you can't speak, So the second reason is I think that Neil deGrasse Tyson surprised Ben Shapiro, because Ben's biggest argument for saying that there are only two genders is that science says that there are only two genders, period. There's nothing else. And so he sort of wants this famous scientist to acknowledge his theory on this. And he basically says, Neil, let us know, is it or is it not true that science has proved that there are only two genders? And Neil puts in a very, very interesting comment to this whole situation. And he basically says, what difference does it make? I'm sort of paraphrasing, I'm not quoting him directly, but he basically is saying, the way I interpreted it, as, it doesn't really matter what the scientific community says. The only thing that matters is that people are allowed to live their lifestyle, to be happy, because life is, in the end, the pursuit for happiness, nothing else. So let's say, for example, and he does this as an example in the interview, he basically says that, okay, so let's say that science proves once and for all that homosexuality, it's not a genetic thing, it's just something in your head. Not that he says that it is that way, but let's say that science does prove this. It doesn't mean that people shouldn't be allowed to be gay because of that. If it's just in their head, it's still very much a reality for them. And so if people have these alternative lifestyle views, then they should be allowed to have them as long as they're not hurting anyone. And I think we can all agree that homosexuals are not hurting anyone. So I just love the fact that Neil had it wasn't very much diplomatic. It was really very honest opinion. Now, I have a different opinion than both of these guys, right? But basically Neil was saying, yeah, there are only two genders, but it doesn't matter if there are only two genders, because if people think the way they think, if a man thinks he's a woman or vice versa, then that's the end of it. That's the most important thing, because science is sometimes wrong. And if science can be allowed to be wrong, that we cannot just base these mass decisions to, let's say that the finding is that homosexuality is just in your hand and you can unlearn it, and so we can forbid homosexuality. That would be a terrible idea, because science has been wrong many times, and it will be wrong a lot of times in the future also. That's the thing we all got to remember, is that science is not truth. Science is an observation of nature and basically just a hypothesis. A proof is not the same as truth. Proof is not equal to truth. You can find proof that somebody killed someone, and you can find proof that somebody didn't kill someone. So it's very important to not let science be an argument for criminalizing people, for example. Now, personally, I look at the whole gender thing more from a philosophical standpoint. I basically see gender as a social construct, which means that I don't think that there is some holy Bible, some universal Bible that says there can be only two sexes. No, it was society that invented the sexes. Yes, there are certain people that have XY chromosomes and can give birth and stuff like that, and there are certain individuals who have XX and they can't give birth, but they can together procreate. That's the reality of the situation. But there is nowhere where it says that if you are this, then you should be called a man. If you are this, you should be called a woman. That's just a social construct. That's just something that we decided. It's like a hammer. We call that a hammer. There is no universal dictionary that says if it's shaped like this, then it's a hammer. No, we call it a hammer. That's the difference. A rose, like the name rose, that's just something that we give to certain flowers. Again, another word. Certain flowers with red petals or sometimes yellow, but a red rose is, we have created this social construct. This is what we call a red rose. And this is what we call a man, and this is what we call a woman. And it's really just in our heads. It's a social construct by society at large. And where most people agree upon that this is what we should call this and this is what we should call this, but there is no truth to that. It's just something that we decided upon, that we agreed upon. I'm a huge fan also of Jordan Peterson, and I agree with him on a lot of things, and there are certain things I don't agree with him on. Like, he's terrified of the idea that people can start to call themselves unicorns and stuff like that. And I do have a problem with that, obviously. Like, for example, if I was sitting here saying I'm a dinosaur, from now on, I'm not a man, I'm just a dinosaur. If I can sort of skip logic and rationality and scientific basis and just say that this is what I am now. And, in theory, it's true. I should be able to call myself whatever I want. But here's the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, that you can't dictate what people are supposed to say to people. So, for example, recently I've been seeing a lot of this gender fluid vocabulary. And you should never refrain to people as him or her, because people might find that offensive. And I said this before in the past, like, if people find it offensive that there are only two genders and, stop, just stop. Like, you're not a victim, okay? If you do not identify as a man or a woman and you identify as a unicorn, then do it with pride and don't care what people call you, Look, Ellen Page, which is an actress that I actually adored, she changed her entire gender. She had a lot of surgery, and she's now Elliot the man. Look, she can do all the surgery she wants, but to me, she's always going to be a woman. I'm sorry, but this is going to sound crude, but sticking feathers up a person's butt is not going to make it a chicken, So, but I do sort of respect that in Ellen's dysmorphic head, she needs to be a man in order to be happy. And so be it, Ellen. You can be Elliot if that is what you truly want. I have no problem with it, but you can't dictate to me what I identify you as. It doesn't work that way. You have your little delusion about who and what you are. That's fine, but I don't need to be a part of that delusion. See what I'm saying? And, let's do this inwards, more against me. So I don't really like the idea of, putting people on the spot. It feels like I'm criticizing everybody here. Let's talk about me. There's certain people who identify me as a man, facial hair, penis, and all of that. But honestly, I don't really identify of the stereotypical type of man. Like, for example, sometimes we go to a shop and we want to buy something and the clerk says something like, oh, you can fix this on your own. Just let your man do all the fixing. And I suck at that, all right? I don't fix stuff, period. I'm good at computers, I'm good at cameras, but when it comes to like fixing, drywall and, just putting a nail to the wall with a hammer, like that's like science to me, I don't understand it. Anyway, just wanted to share some thoughts on this topic. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.